So Probe's going to try to get on top of this right now. He's got an Atlas there as well. Yes, there's friendly fire you got to be careful of, but you can start to knock things down, and that's he will be able to do. The bottom left in the blue, he's the Infernal player, taking down Larimbo 2-1 to get here. It's oCRaM. And the upper right in the red. He is, again, probably the best Vanguard versus Infernal player that we have here in Stormgate. His name is Probe. I mean, I gotta get myself out of the being used or out of the habit of StarCraft observing tools, observing hotkeys, because they're just not there yet. So, like, for example, I'm trying to go and like press backspace to go between bases at the very start. It's like just not. I don't know. Well, this is an interesting creep cut path, by the way. It works out. The brute can get through, but it's just a little weird. And by the way, oCRaM is doing something that is very weird here. Is that, hey, this is double vault. He is getting very aggressive on this. He's going to knock the vision camp. But the trick is, by opening without a conclave, he is not going to have any sort of fiend generation. The only fiend generation he's going to have is by turning his brutes into fiends, which is not really what you're looking for. So what he's trying to do here is take advantage of Probe's greed, of Probe getting, going command post first, getting this barracks done right now. There will be no sentry post available for the time being. And he's just trying to rally across the map. This is kind of a pseudo proxy, get as greedy as possible. Now, Probe, he's going to have repair on these bobs. He can go and try to be as efficient as possible. And with only a single brute right now, it's not a ton of damage just yet. And eventually, you can pop an overcharge, and that adds a ton of damage, a ton of tankiness to things as Lancers are starting to get ready. But again, this is awkward, right? This is Probe not able to mine as well as he would like, but first Lancers out now. Now, of course, we do have brutes. Brutes do a much better job against Lancers, against Bobs than Gaunts ever do, because they actually do significant damage. Their attack -3 is still a lot more than 3. So brutes now into the main base. Overcharge was, of course, popped in the natural. A lot of these brutes are very low, but notice kind of what Probe is doing here. He doesn't want to go, and there we go. Now we're going to see the fiend conversion anyways. He doesn't want to convert the fiends. He doesn't want to have them get transformed, because that is just a problem. That is a lot of damage that is hard to deal with. They're very fast. They're very mobile. They don't have a ton of HP, but everything else is fine. So some bobs are starting to go down here. Notice the target fire. 3 bobs fall early, and with how slow the economy tends to scale in this game, 3 bobs is significant. But one Lancer glaive, one Lancer pike shot just knocks them all down very quickly. So looks like this aggression is over for right now. On the other side, we of course have our natural about halfway done. Third base on the way for oCRaM as well at the same time. And if we think about this, what do you got? You got an overcharge. You got bobs pulled off the natural to fight a little bit. He got 3 bobs in the main base. That's pretty significant. But now he doesn't have a ton of map control. Now, again, he's still stuck on this brute tech. In fact, I don't think he's building any more brutes. I don't see any, because of course, as an Infernal player, it makes a ton of sense to go and just, if you don't want to spend the money on it, you just go and you bank your spots. You bank your charges, because the difference between spending 150 Luminite at once or spending 450 Luminite at once versus kind of dragging it out if you're not trying to hit a timing is totally fine. So he made 1 brute, knocked down the resource camp, because brutes actually kill resource camps fairly quickly. And he does have the option to go and try to build a couple more if he needs to, but it seems like for the moment, Probe is not all that interested in making this happen. He's going to dive on top of this brute. Fiends are going to, of course, have to get spawned. And Lancers without kinetic redirect are not going to be fast enough. So that's on the way. As we're on, of course, double barracks tech right now. Not a ton of therium mining. In fact, it seems like Probe might be interested in going for a bit of an aggressive option here. Again, without a ton of therium mining, this could just be to power up into a third base pretty quickly, but he's not getting himself ready for round 2, right? The Lancers are just in perfect position to intercept these fiends and being annoying about it. Only mining one therium or 1 bob on therium tells us that he's, again, not trying to go for that much more. Overcharge was popped in the natural, by the way. We saw that just on the edge of things. So the main base is a little bit more vulnerable to these fiends, but again, with 2 Lancers chasing these things down, it's not likely that they're going to get a ton done. Oh, they're going to get a bob. They're going to get a bob. Very nice there, Probe. By the way, Probe is he's not fully saturated, never mind, but he's fully saturated in the main base, so we can start to take main base production and start to put it on that Therium line and start to develop his tech just a little bit more. Behind this, of course, third base is done for our Infernal player. Main base, there's the Greater Shrine. So we can expect... Actually, do we have a Conclave yet? There is no Conclave on the map whatsoever. There is no higher tech, which is wild if you think about it, because the only thing that a Greater Shrine gives you two things. You know, Greater Shrine gives you access to tier 2 tech, but also it means your Shroud heals at 2% instead of 1%. So clearly that's what our players are going for here. But I do think it is very surprising that we're not seeing anything. There we go. Okay, there's the Shadow Cleft. I was like, we got to see something, right? That makes a little bit of sense. But this is a very different way that Mr. oCRaM is playing compared to like every other Infernal player. Obviously, he's a brute enjoyer. That is very much true. But as we are on, again, only double vault. He has not started to develop his production any further than that. He's just totally saturating things. The question we ask ourselves, is this going to be for Magmadons? Probably not, right? Magmas are, you get a couple, but no more than that. They're just not very good units. But I think we're going to go for some like sort of brute Hellborn timing, which I think is actually a really good idea. It's a pretty... I've been messing around with it a little bit. Obviously not opening double brute because I think that is madness. It worked out for him though. It really did. But opening brutes, then going to Hellborn behind that, you hit with like 3 Hellborn and just a bunch of brutes to tank for it. And because Hellborn do 50 damage a shot right now, they absolutely just shell away at Lancers. So you do 47 damage a pop. That means 160, 181. It takes like 6 shots. So it takes 2 volleys of 3 Hellborn to kill a Lancer, which is, you know, it's still significant, but you know, not that bad. All right, so you have that damage on top. Brutes actually fight Lancers fairly well, and you can go for these pretty cool timings that do push down. Now, what it does mean, of course, is that you do struggle. And by the way, 3 Conclaves are done, so maybe not. But the Hellborn here, and that is going to be a solid amount of defensive power just on top. There is so much static defense right now that it's going to be pretty hard for Probe to cut through this easily. So for now, the Hellborn is there. It's going to shove away. And Bomb Again Golf, I am glad that you enjoy my camera. Yeah, this is the latest Conclave I've ever seen. So where do we go from here, right? We got 2 Hellborn, we got a bunch of brutes. Nothing has been made out of these Conclaves, even as the tech is available. And it's interesting, from such an aggressive opening. Bossy, thank you so much for the follow. I don't think you're playing today, right? But yeah, from the latest Conclave we've ever seen, now we have these Hellborns out. Now we're finally starting to see some Gaunts into the fray. We do need to cut these trees down. They're so dumb. Not the trees. The trees don't think, but the units are so dumb. Idiots. Everything. That is one thing I wish. I gotta get this tree. This tree is a problem. One thing I wish that would happen is probably 4 Hellborn is a decent amount of stuff. I do wish that the units were a little bit better about... They're too sticky in their positions. I think what it is. They're too intent on holding their own position. So, like, if I have a bunch of Gaunts and brutes and I want to pull the Gaunts backwards off my front line, the brutes don't give way and it gets a little bit awkward. But here's the timing that our opponent's been trying to go for now. 4 Lancers are going to try to dive into the main base. They're going to soak a little bit of damage, and they should be able to run into the main. Meanwhile, tons of Exos and Lancers, but the trick is, with these 4 Hellborn on the back line, the Exos don't last nearly as well as they would like. 3 shots, of course, kills a level or a veterancy 0 Exo, so you got to be very careful about this. And without any medtechs, there's no healing. So this splash damage is very significant here. Probe has to take this extremely seriously, but he's got a bit of a concave setup. And remember, by the way, Hellborn do 100 damage to buildings. So, yes, they do decent damage to Exos, and that's kind of why you want them. But more importantly, it's because they bust buildings down. So the Rampart now is available on that flak cannon. That splash damage to everything is always going to be pretty nice. But we, of course, have Probe getting ready. He's got healing available right now. The one Lancer just gets almost annihilated. Probe, he's got his surround getting ready on the backside. X's are going to start to show up. And again, you just need to find some way. Medtechs are here as well. You want to find some way to get on top of the Hellborn. If you get on top of the Hellborn, if you knock those down, that's how the push collapses. So Probe's going to try to get on top of this right now. He's got Atlas there as well. Yes, there's friendly fire you got to be careful of, but you can start to knock things down, and he will be able to do so. So the Hellborn, they have to run. Absolutely. But this is 5 Hellborn now. This is so expensive. If you lose this, it's a problem. He's going to lose them right now. Lancers are on top. Some of them actually, the Hellborn, you know, they don't have a minimum range, but even still, that's 3 dead Hellborn. And chasing down the rest is a significant problem right now. Probe, I liked oCRaM's build, but I feel like it's just a little bit slow. And it gave Probe just a little bit too much time, or he committed just a little bit too long. And this is one of the things that can be a bit of a problem if you're an Infernal player, is kind of noticing when you have to run and when you have to fight. Because your units are so, I mean, look at this, so many tier 3 exos. Your units are very fast, are very slow for them. You have fast and slow units, but your power units, the ones that you actually really want to take advantage of, they are pretty slow. They take quite a while, so you have to be able to identify as the Infernal player. And again, it's not easy. At what point the battle is gonna go away from you in like 30 seconds? And that is just, yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, you cannot afford to playing this composition. You really can't afford to lose a fight. Yeah, health. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I wish I could turn off edge pan, but I can't. So I just have to remember to keep my mouse not on the edge. But between the Hellborn, or not the Hellborn, between the Medtechs and the healing cam, yeah, this army is totally healthy, and we're just, the bio balls getting started. We got Hellborn, or we got Lancers on this side, which means that there's going to be no other 4th base. Bunch of, oh, this is pretty cool. Bunch of Fiends on the north side. I assume, I can't remember the upgrade's called, but I assume he has the Brood upgrade, which is actually underutilized and pretty solid. But flat cannon is there, so this run by is not gonna be. Oh, friendly fire, maybe do a little bit, burn it all down. How many bombs fall? Fast repair is gonna be able to repair through the majority of it, so could have been a hell of a lot worse. Probe almost ruined his economy. Yeah, that could have been really bad. But at this point, I'm almost surprised to not see Probe going for more aggression. But now attack on the right side. There are 2 sentry posts here, but these are 2 unmanned sentry posts, so there's not a ton of it. They're just going to get knocked down. This is a ton of Fiends. And this is actually if you've been so Luminite heavy and you've been so Vault heavy, that committing to this, like just turning these all into Fiends, is a pretty good idea. But we're going to see the Rampart go down right now, which keeps this alive a little bit longer, a little bit more HP. Is that going to be enough to keep the command post alive? The answer is no. Not really, but at least it'll be enough to make sure that the good majority of these Fiends go down. And hey, you can power build with a bunch of Bobs and make that happen. So yeah, Probe's not on 5 bases anymore. He's only on 4, but he's still on 5 bases. He's not on 6 bases right now. But he can power build back up. So that's going to pop back up pretty quickly. And now Medtechs are on the field. You can start to do the Atlas drops shenanigans. A Hornet as well, just to deal with any Doombringers. And this army that Probe is making is so hard, so insanely hard for excuse me, not for Bossy, for oCRaM to deal with. So he's just doing this continuous run by thing, putting all these Fiends into Luminite lines that are maybe not as heavily defended, but again, double post right, or a double flat cannon right there. So that's gonna be pretty hard. But now we're gonna drop Lancer, or we're gonna drop Atlases pretty much in range of these Hellborn, and that's a ton of damage. And this is where it gets really hard. Certainly with that Flaming Imps, it gets almost impossible. There's not good options for our Infernal player to properly deal with his late game Vanguard army. And you know, it's funny, you look at this, it's like, man, it's a bunch of man with gun. Clearly, that's you know, if you're kind of used to the StarCraft 2 paradigm, you're like, it's okay, but it's not anything insane. System Shock goes down as well and dives on top of things. This is going to be the end of the game. oCRaM, game 1 goes the way of Probe. And of course, as we get here into game number 2, if you would like to support this tournament, ! Matcherino in the chat will get you there. It'll show you everything that you need to do that you need to know. There we go. Not even need to do, need to know to donate to the prize pool, because 100% of the prize pool, in fact, does go towards the players. None of it goes to Attico or myself or anyone else helping out with the tournament. Well, there we go. It's Bruce running across the map again. There is a little bit more dicey. It's a much more wide open natural this time, but the rush distance is a little bit longer. So the barracks is going to be done by the time the brutes show up, instead of just as it shows up, which means the Lancer's going to be about halfway on the map as this all gets started here. So let's see if it works out round 2. I'm still unsure as to whether I want to add this build into my repertoire on ladders. So Dog is taking some damage, but it can get repaired on up, and I'm not totally sure whether pulling a bunch of Bobs does more damage, as one Bob's going to get very, very low. Mass Repair has to be there. Overcharge is popped, and that's going to force things into the main base pretty quickly here. First Lancer's out. Second one, of course, on the way. We don't have a sentry post in the main base. Not just yet, but there we go. Running into it. Sentry post, the natural, of course, on the way. Power built plus overcharge means it gets up very, very quickly. Bob and Lancers in the main base. Scout, Lancers, and Bobs pulled away as well. Probe doing a nice job of keeping this dog alive, which again is important. Every unit that you can have early on, Bob is gonna go down. There we go. First damage, first blood is gonna go the way, of course, of our Infernal player. Third Brute in the main base now, but we're starting to see more Lancers ready. And the Lancers, not only do they fight, they don't do a ton of damage, of course, without their kinetic overcharge. They do fight. They do splash damage. So they make it a little bit easier to deal with these fiends. They're all going to get spawned down. Not really many Bobs are going down. I think it's only the one. In fact, look at this Bob. It's got veterancy, level 2. It's got more HP. It doesn't do anything else, but it does this. I don't know what the prize pool is at the moment. If you click the link, it'll tell you what the prize pool is actually. Maturino, but yes, it is 100% of the 100% of money less Maturino, because Maturino takes a small cut to serve things, but 100% of money that'll show in the prize pool again will go to the players. None of it goes to anyone else. So this has been dealt with. Game 1, it actually got a decent amount of damage. Game 2, not nearly as much. It got like 1 Bob. Didn't kill Lancer. I don't even think it got. Nah, didn't even get the Scout. So a little bit awkward. Natural is, of course, done. He's going to start mining. Double so many Shroud Stones. Is now, of course, the Scout's going to say, there. This Shroud Stone's kind of blocking the third. I guess you can put it right here. Maybe there is some orthogonality right there. Maybe there's some orthogonality. Maybe you can go 90 degrees on this angle. I'm not totally sure, but this looks to me like this is I mean, he's gonna drop it here, but this is not. This is not on the. This is not 90 degrees to the Luminite camp. I'm pretty sure. So it's gonna be slightly inefficient mining on the third base coming out from our Infernal player, which is not what you're looking for. But where does the name the Alpha Navigator come from? Well, this tournament series, Bruno, was started in the alpha. So this tournament was for people at the very beginning. This tournament series was for players who were navigating the alpha. And now, of course, we're in the beta. So TBNC would be, I guess, a more technical term, but tabunk does not roll off the tongue nearly as well as tank. So, there we go. Tabunk. Welcome everyone to Tabunk. Anyways, Lancers on the map, of course. Kinetic redirect, I think, is done. Yeah, okay, it is done now. We see that aura, and we're gonna see all the Lancers. They're gonna heal right back up on here. Ready-made medtech at your service, ready to go. Yeah, there are a ton of Infernals in this tournament, but this I think this really reflects previous imbalance rather than current imbalance. Because to qualify for this event, it's based on how well you did in the previous Alpha Navigator tournaments, and that a lot of those tournaments happen in periods of time when Infernals were pretty dang strong. Last Devastator patch, Infernals were giga broken, and I say this as an Infernal player. They just, if the Hedgehog build didn't do enough damage, Infernals would take the map. They would run everything over. It was giga broken. So. When I say last patch, I mean last test build, the last beta. That the dream hack. If you saw when Mana did the Stormgate Showdown, it was that build, and Infernals were incredibly strong there. So this really, more than anything else, the fact that it's 14-4 or something like that, 12-4, really reflects how the balance used to be versus how the balance currently is. Map 1 was on Broken Crown. This is on Secluded Grove. You can tell that it's like that because that's the way it is. There's a Secluded Grove in the middle of the map that has 2 bases on it that you may look to go for. His Probe's just trying to end the game right now. Yes, there are 3 Shroud Stones, but look at what he's doing. He's like, yep, okay, I'm taking damage. Let me pull back to the healing zone. I know you cannot chase me down. You got 5 roots. That is really just about all that you got. So Shadow Cliff just about done. Of course, a Greater Shrine is done as well. But again, he hasn't even cracked the natural Therium spot. It really has only been the Therium in the main base. So not a ton of Therium mining, which means the Hellborns he's going to get are not going to be really all that quickly. Now, he's doing a really nice job of keeping these brutes alive as long as possible. They're all very low and getting white health right back on up, but they're all going to go down now. And that's not great. And it's crazy the difference as we take a look at this. And these Lancers are just not dying. Probe's doing such a nice job of keeping them all alive and getting that veterancy up. I mean, level 2 Lancer. The difference between killing off 3 Bobs and having more sustained aggression and not getting any Bob, or only getting 1 Bob, and everything that's happening, Probe's aggression is so much more effective. He's able to exert his will. Also, it's a lot easier to try to break this 3rd base than it is the 3rd base on Broken Crown. So that does help. But actually, is starting to hit the map as well. And notice Probe, he had the tech for them a while ago, but he's not starting to make them until he has that quick draw hustle upgrade. That means that when they fire, they move fast. So you can mic with them just a little bit more. Lancers on top of the Hellborn on the back line. This is a problem. This is 250 Therium. This is a good majority of the Therium that has been invested in on this 1 base setup, and they're not going to do enough whatsoever here. Yes, there's going to be a Shroud Stone that gets manifested, and sure, the Hellborn stays alive just a little bit longer until the Lancers get on top of it. They're stacked defense, but Probe says that's fine. You know, some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice that I am absolutely willing to make, as these imps will fall as well. He's got a healing camp. He's got a 4th base on the way. He doesn't have to kill his opponent with this. He just really would like to. Corey making his first Stormgate Liquipedia edit. Love to see it. What's the status of viewer caster overlays that show everything like that? It's a lower priority. We don't have Rush Iron has actually said, kind of as a result of the whole hullabaloo around where they're funded until the crowdfunding stuff, that they will give us a timeline shortly, whatever that is, soon TM, I guess. But I'm assuming observer replay might be an EA thing, if that. It just doesn't make sense to commit to any further than that, because again, you want tier 3, you want more units, you want all this other stuff. And yeah, you know, not all the same people aren't working on everything, but last test we only could see one player perspective. So the fact that I can load into a game and see everything that Probe is doing and everything that oCRaM is doing is a pretty big deal. Like, that is already a pretty significant improvement. Game of Cheese, I want to say this is the first tournament that has a prize pool. Everything else before then was during closed testing, and I think Fresh Giant didn't want prize pool tournaments like that, so there was no prize pool for the previous tanks. Just glory. Yeah. Spamming Lancers with Exo with upgrade is just so broken. If they nerf it, I'm gonna have to actually learn the game. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, they'll get there. Again, Ryan Shooter, who is the guy who made Gameheart, he works for Stormgate. He's been working on this stuff. It's just a matter of where, you know, they're a small team, right? They have only $37 million right now. They only have $37 million to make this game, and that sounds like a lot, but this is something that we've been saying for a long time now. That is not a lot, not to make a game of the scale of the ambition that Fresh Giant has. So you have to determine what you're going to spend your development dollars on, what's going to come out for early access, what's going to come out for 1.0, what's going to come out for each beta, right? You just have to prioritize. As by the way, Probe is, interestingly enough, he's not trying to take this base. He's taking the north side base. That's very far out of the way. He's taking creep camps everywhere. But I'm a bit surprised to not see him take the center. This is 2 bases in 1. Right? It's very, very strong if you can get it. But apparently not. Apparently he's not going to go for that one. We're going to see some Fiends looking to scout. See, oh, okay, there's a 4th base. I have not seen the Grubby video, I Am Zren, so I don't have thoughts on the Grubby video because I have not seen it. But did he make another one recently? Because I know he did one video where he was pretty what's the word? He was pretty complimentary of the engine, but I haven't seen anything since then. as the Fiends are going to get it right on top of this command post once again. This is the oCRaM classic. Be behind, get a base. You know, go for that. But the problem is, I don't think he can break this army. There are 2 Atlases and a Medtech. They can drop right on top and start to knock these Hellborns down. I mean, it is, yes, losing the Bobs is unfortunate, and it will force Pro back home. Because a sentry post without anything inside of it doesn't really do a ton. Oh, but there we go. Yeah, I mean, we knew that, but the mid-tech was out. Now, you do have to be careful. Right? Fiends can get on top of these Exos, and Exos are kind of like ghosts in terms of how much they matter. They're expensive. You don't want to get them to high veterancy, but yeah, their Fiends are going to go down right now. Yeah, no, Grubby is... I love Grubby. Grubby's great. I think Grubby is absolutely, in your words, jumping at shadows there. Not to say that Frost Giant has $100 million in the bank. They don't. But they have been talking about their timeline, and this is something that just kind of, and maybe it's part of it's maybe on my fault with Stormgate Nexus for not covering it properly, but I honestly didn't see it either. Frost Giant has been saying what their plan was for a while. There's an interview with Kara LaForge back in September, or that was recorded, I think, in like June, but released in September by StarCraft historians saying, hey, you know what? At some point, we're going to have to monetize this game. We're not getting the Series B funding we would like because, well, venture capital is in a horrible position right now as these Fiends get even more damage done. Very nice here. oCRaM trying to fight his way back into it. But venture capital is, you know, is 5% interest rates. 5.5% interest rates means, you know, investment or VC investment in video games is down 80% in 2023 compared to 2022. VC in general is down 40% year over year, 2023 to 2022. It's just a really rough situation. So they weren't getting the hits they would like. So you got to find some way to do that. Kickstarter was one of them. But Kara's also like, look, we're going to have to go into early access at some point, and the game's going to be where it's going to be when we go into it. Like, it's going to be where it's going to be. We don't have too much of a choice. Like, we only have $35 million to make this game, and we're trying to make a $100 million game. So there was that, you know, even during the Kickstarter AMA, or during like in the Kickstarter thread, when they announced the Kickstarter, Gerald said that they were funded to early access. What happened, I think, is that it's very easy, especially if you're in a small team and everyone's kind of working on the same stuff, to go and say, we are doing, that's a little bit awkward. These are 2 free Atlas. Oh, no, never mind. Shots go down. Very nice there. A lot of these scenes will fall, and Atlas stays alive. Very nice. It's very easy to get used to like a certain language for things, and if they are considering launch, early access launch, that it's very easy to build this Kickstarter document and say, yeah, we're funded to launch, because in their mind, early access launch is the launch they're talking about, and it's a matter of poor communication rather than anything else. So it's very tempting, and I'm, you know, it's very tempting to kind of cry disaster as system shock goes down to these. Yeah, the static defense is going to fall very quickly, but we have a Nightfall infestation, maybe. Yeah, not going to be enough. It's going to get, actually, you can system shock all this off. The infest is going to get dropped off this army very, very quickly. But it's easy to go in and cry disaster, because that's kind of what it looks like on first glance, because of poor communication. But it is more, to from my following and from what I've been able to see, is these Hellborn are dead here. They should die at least. From my reporting and from what I've been able to tell, it's more poor communication than it is actual disaster. But that's just my perspective, and you know, I've been accused in the past of being too positive anyways. So anyway, take it for what it's worth. Is these Hellborn on the high ground are starting to get shelled away at, lots of damage being done, and right side not a ton there, but base is done up here. No Bobs on that, of course. The base is done. The 4th base of our Infernal player will fall down. 5th base on the way, and it is mining, and that's not something Probe is really checking. So white health is shield. You regenerate it at 2% per second if there's a greater shrine, and 1% per second if you're on base shrine. And it's up to about, what is like 25% of your HP, I think. Whatever the math is on that, it's effectively an extra 20% HP shield that regenerates only when you're on Shroud. Is how that works. Yes, these run-bys are trying to slow things down, but I mean, how do you stop this army? This feels very difficult. The run-bys are incredibly annoying. Like, just so we're clear, the run-bys are incredibly annoying, but the Hornet, they're starting to pop out. They should be able to handle things. The reinforcements should be able to handle things. And this army out of Probe is just feels nigh unstoppable. Yeah, there are Hellborn. There are 5 of them. That one shot's just about anything. The problem is there's nothing to buffer for him. And there's healing. The med techs can drop more. These Exos are starting to get a lot of veterancy, which means that they have more HP, which means it's a little bit harder to shoot down. Everything in the front line is dead. oCRaM is dead. System shock on top of everything. Means that Probe moves on to the upper bracket semis, I want to say it is. Game 2 goes to Probe.